There's one image that I've seen go around comparing chicken over the years, and there's one from like 1950, 1990, and then like 2020. And the 2020 chicken is like this monster chicken
Yeah.
that's just bred to produce as much meat as possible. And when you're doing that, you're just not creating the best output, the best nutrient dense food for people to consume.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 28 of the Clean Kitchen Podcast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kevin.
And today we have a little bit of a different setup, if you can't tell. Kevin and I are doing this podcast episode virtually because I am in Florida for the next few weeks. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, not a bad setup there.
No, so if anything sounds different, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you notice that we're doing this through Zoom, then that is why. But this is a very interesting podcast episode that we have lined up today because the Mediterranean diet, I'm sure many people have heard of this before, it was just named the best diet of 2024. And according to this specific diet, there's a few things I don't completely agree with. They recommend eating fish multiple times a week and red meat once per month. And they actually made a little bit, or who made this exactly, Kevin?
Yeah, this came out from U.S. News and World Report. So they put out a bunch of rankings on a variety of things, but this one they just put out on the diet.
Yeah. So they kind of have a food pyramid here. And like I said, they recommend having fish multiple times a week and then having red meat once a month. And they actually put red meat in the same category as sweets, like candy and cookies, which kind of blows my mind, and can't say I completely agree with, but we'll get into the details here.
Yeah, there's some good parts of this diet, but that one of putting red meat and sweets in the same category is a little bit mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But to give a little bit more context too, so what is the Mediterranean diet? What it really does is it focuses on diet quality rather than a specific food group. So that would be good. Focusing on the quality of the ingredients is something we preach here a lot on the podcast. But what it says is specifically it reduces the risk of chronic health conditions, including heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Again, all good things, all things we like to see. And then the natural question is how does it do that? What is the focus of the diet that proves that you're reducing these health conditions? And it actually comes from something that we've heard about before. It was first documented in the 7 countries study with our buddy Ansel Keys that investigated the relationship between diet and heart disease between 1958 and it says 1999, but I think they've been drawing conclusions from this study since way before 1999. For anyone that doesn't remember the 7 country study, what was that and why was it an issue? Why don't we always rely on it?
Yeah, so Ansel Keys was kind of the man behind this very famous study, and he kind of cherry picked data in terms of the different regions that he looked at, and he wanted to basically prove that red meat was bad because it was high in saturated fat, which increased your cholesterol, and cholesterol is bad. So anything that went along with this narrative of meat is bad, he cherry picked data from specific countries that didn't include a lot of red meat in their diets, but were healthy. And the Mediterranean diet, I mean, in and of itself, if people follow the Mediterranean diet, if Americans follow the Mediterranean diet, I think we'd be pretty healthy for the most part. There's just a few things that I disagree with in here, and it's shaming certain foods that I don't think should be shamed. And I think it's promoting foods that maybe we shouldn't be consuming a whole lot.
Yeah, it is like a one-step improvement, I'd say, from the traditional American diet with processed foods. There's
for sure. Maybe even more than one step.
Yeah, a few steps because it removes that processed food. And it is saying sweets at the very top of this kind of food pyramid should be limited to once a month, which is good. It's just categorizing meat in there as well.
Right.
But I think the big thing that stands out within the Mediterranean diet is the choice of protein, what we've kind of just been hinting at. It really places a huge emphasis on fish being a huge portion of your diet twice a week, consuming fish. And then chicken, it says every so often, maybe every other week, a couple times a month, you should be having chicken. And then rarely, once a month, you should be consuming red meat. And that's not something that we've kind of echoed on this podcast before. So I think just maybe what we can talk about is those three types of proteins: beef, chicken, and fish, and how you think about them and how you compare them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So we'll compare all of them, and then we'll kind of give a, the winner of the three if I were to choose one of these
Yep.
at the end. So start off with fish.
Let's do fish first. Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about this before. We've done a full podcast episode all about fish, but the main thing you have to be careful with fish is the amount of heavy metals in fish. And this might not have been a problem, 50, 100, or, going back thousands of years ago. But our oceans are more and more, they get more and more polluted every single day. And unfortunately, these fish are getting more and more contaminated, specifically mercury and lead. Are the two most common types of heavy metals found in fish and seafood. And I mean, this is not good for our body. It can cause a lot of central nervous issues. It can disrupt our hormone production and the balance that goes along with that. Can even cause some brain damage. So it's definitely something to be mindful of. And this is one instance where I think the Mediterranean diet may not be the best if you're consuming that much fish. There are some fish that are lower in heavy metals. For example, anchovies or sardines, which you probably may know, they're the smallest fish, so they accumulate the least amount of these heavy metals. But yeah, Kevin, that's the main reason why I'm not a huge fan of fish and seafood.
Yeah, this was one thing I was not aware of before we did that full podcast on fish. I always thought fish were healthy, good to
Mm-hmm.
consume them, have kind of good nutrient profile associated with them.
And they
But
definitely do.
yeah,
They do have good nutrients. Specifically, a lot of fish are really high in omega 3s, which
yeah,
we'll get into in a second here, comparing all three types of these animal protein. But yeah, they are nutritious. They are a good source of vitamins and minerals, but it's what goes along with it that I don't like.
yeah, they're the risks associated with consuming fish, which
Exactly.
when you're consuming it twice a week under this diet, you're just putting yourself at more of a risk of potentially exposing yourself to those heavy metals.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's fish, has some definitely good qualities to it, and you do consume fish, right?
Every once in a while,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't say I've been consuming it a whole lot recently. Um, but if I were to consume it, I'd probably stick to sardine. Like I said, sardines and anchovies are relatively low in heavy metals, and then maybe some wild caught salmon.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's probably what I would stick to.
So specific types of fish you have.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that's fish. Should we move on to chicken then and break
yeah,
that down? Okay.
yeah,
Let's do that. What should people be thinking about when they think about chicken? 'Cause again, something that I think is healthy, like a good option is consuming chicken.
yeah. Chicken's good. If you get the right chicken. Um, and again, we did an entire podcast episode all about chicken, but kind of high level, you want to look for pasture raised chicken because this is going to have, well, first of all, the requirements of pasture raised chicken is much stricter than conventional chicken, where the chickens are thousands of chickens are packed in a warehouse consuming nothing but GMO grains, corn and soy that have been sprayed with a bunch of synthetic pesticides and herbicides. Uh, and these chickens really don't have any room to roam. So these are not healthy chickens. And if the chicken's not healthy, then it's not nutrient dense. And then therefore, we are probably not going to be healthy if we're consuming large amounts of that chicken.
Yeah, there's
Um,
one image that I've seen go around comparing chicken over the years, and there's one from like 1950, 1990, and then like 2020, and the 2020 chicken is like this monster chicken
yeah.
that's just bred to produce as much meat as possible. And when you're doing that, you're just not creating the best output, the best nutrient dense food for people to consume. But the picture itself is hilarious at how different the size is.
Yeah. Yeah. They're literally just trying to fatten them up as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
How much meat can they get on there and obviously sell it for a profit? It's funny because when I went to New York City for the Kettle and Fire event that I went to, that pop up
Yeah.
thing, they had like a fake chicken, one here and one here, and one of them was chicken from like 1960 or 1950, and then one of them was chicken now. And I mean, like you just said, like the difference was crazy. Just
Yeah.
like, and that's the other thing. Now that they fatten these chickens up as quickly as possible, a lot of them get sick, or a lot of them have like they can't stand because they're so
Mhm.
fat. and then they'll break their legs or something. So it's just not good overall.
Yeah, they can get diseases, and then you're
Yeah,
consuming a chicken that was just like the weakest diseased chicken out there, and you're like, that is that really what I want to be consuming? I want something that's healthy, something that has survived in the wild and can pass that benefit on to me.
exactly. And that's really important because when you are consuming a pasture raised chicken that's out on a pasture every single day, getting sunlight, eating, yes, they usually are still supplemented with a feed because it's difficult to get their entire diet from grass, bugs, and worms. But these pasture raised uh, birds are still going to be consuming grass, bugs, and worms, which is a much more ancestral appropriate diet for chickens and is going to increase a lot of the vitamins and minerals in it. So, pasture raised chicken is what you want. It is going to be more nutrient dense, but the main difference between conventional chicken and pasture raised chicken is the omega 6 to omega 3 ratio. Quick reminder, if you are enjoying this episode of the Clean Kitchen podcast, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, make sure you leave a rating and review. This is how we reach more people. And hey, if this is beneficial for you, share it with a friend that you think could also benefit from this information. And we've talked about this before, but omega 3 fats, good,
Mm-hmm.
anti-inflammatory. Omega 6 fats, not so good, bad, inflammatory. Some people like to say. So conventional chicken has an omega 6 to 3 ratio of 30 to 1,
Okay.
which is a lot of omega 6,
Yep.
which is
And
one of, yep.
yeah, for reference, what is like the ideal ratio for humans? What are we looking for?
They recommend, many doctors and experts recommend either 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 omega 6 to 3 ratio.
Yeah.
So we really want that being almost basically a similar amount. We want the amount of omega 3s we're getting to be similar to the amount of omega 6s. And both of these are they're essential amino acids, meaning our body can't make them. We have to get them from food. But nowadays, we're just consuming way too much omega 6 fats, specifically from vegetable oils.
Yeah.
That's the primary source. So we want to limit that omega 6 in our diet where we can. And a perfect example of that is in chicken. If you really want to lower that omega 6 content, I definitely recommend going for pasture raised chicken, which has a much lower omega 6 to 3 ratio of either or between 5 to 1 or 8 to 1, somewhere in that range.
Wow. A considerable
So
from 30 to 1 to worst case scenario, like 8 to 1.
correct. Yeah. So
Wow.
so much lower.
Yeah. So is non-pasture raised chicken, are you concerned that it's almost inflammatory with a number that's high?
If you're consuming it a lot, then
Mhm.
yeah. If it's every once in a while, I'd say it's not as big of a deal. But yeah, if you're consuming it on a daily basis, it might be causing more harm than good.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. The
Yeah.
other thing I remember from the chicken episode was we had the pasture-raised chicken and we had conventional chicken, but there's also like a middle chicken. I think it ended up just being more so a marketing term. Free range, was that chicken that we were talking
Free
about?
range. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Organic free range is kind of in the middle.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is it something, if you're looking at the three, and I guess if you're deciding between the spending the couple extra dollars on pasture raised, is it worth it to make that jump up from free range?
I'd say it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting that
Yeah.
much more benefit.
Yeah. I don't think there's a huge difference between the conventional chicken. And when I say conventional, I just mean, non organic, regular chicken, the cheapest chicken that you find at the store.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a huge difference nutritionally speaking from that to free range. Um, because free range again is kind of a marketing gimmick depending
Mhm.
on the farm, the actual the specific farm that it came from. But yeah, I'd say it's worth it to go for the pasture raised.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like just even based on the omega 6 to 3, you're getting so much more from the pasture raised, and you're going to spend more on free range compared to conventional anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So either go all the way up or even maybe even just limit your conventional chicken intake might be one
Yeah.
thing to consider.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to beef then, the third potential protein in the diet here. And I know Kyle's personal favorite.
This is you just gave away my answer. But yes, beef, any ruminant animal for that matter. So beef, elk, venison, lamb, those sort of things, those sort of animals are going to be my favorite. But yes, beef is my favorite, definitely
Mhm.
in terms of taste, at least.
Yeah.
Um, and when you compare the vitamins and minerals and amino acids of beef versus chicken versus fish, and really any type of fish for that matter, beef always wins. The amount of these vitamins and minerals and the amount of these amino acids in beef far surpasses chicken or fish, maybe except for the omega-3 content, when you compare that to chicken and fish.
Yeah. What's the for reference, what's the omega-3 content for beef?
Yeah, so I'll keep this consistent, but the omega-6 to 3 ratio for grass-fed beef, 100% grass-fed beef, is 2 to 1. And that's
Wow.
what we said where we want it to be.
Hmm.
1 to 1, 2 to 1. So that's ideal. Like I said, chicken, we'll stick with pasture raised chicken, but that's 5 to 1, between 5 to 1 and 8 to 1. But there is a lot more omega-3 fats in chicken. 100-gram serving of chicken can have up to 400 milligrams of omega-3s, which is great. It's a lot. Um, but then again, it also has a lot of those omega-6 to go along with it.
Yeah.
And then if we rewind back to fish, specifically wild caught salmon, that can have an omega-6 to 3 ratio of 1 to 10.
Oh, wow.
So much more omega-3s than omega-6, which is good. That's great.
Hmm.
But we just talked about my concerns with fish, the heavy metal content and other contaminants for that matter that are being
Yeah.
dumped in the ocean.
Yeah, just to drill that home, that's one omega-6 for every 10 omega-3, which is a huge reversal of what we saw with both beef and chicken. Is there any concern that that's like too much omega-3? Is that a thing? Too much omega-3 versus omega-6?
I don't know if you can have too much. Um, but I don't think we need as much as we think we do.
Yeah. What do you
Um,
mean by that?
I think that I think we're focusing a lot on the omega. And when I say we, I just mean, I guess,
The
the
royal we.
country. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The country in general. We have a very high focus on omega-3 fats, but I think the main focus should be on the omega-6 fats and actually minimizing that. Yes, omega-3 fats are great. They can be anti-inflammatory, great for your brain and skin and many other things. But I think step one is decreasing the amount of omega-6 fats. I think that's where we should start.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's two ways to approach every ratio, is increasing one side or decreasing the other. And you talked about how prevalent omega-6 is in our lives. It's in all of these vegetable oils. Decreasing that also levels out the omega-6 to 3 ratio in our bodies without even like forcing yourself to consume more omega-3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'd say, yeah, I'd say that's step one. And then, while we're kind of on the topic of this, the omega-3 versus omega-6, I would recommend, if you are trying to get good high quality omega-3 fats into your diet, yes, certain fish, like I said, sardines, anchovies, wild caught salmon, every once in a while can be good. Pasture raised chicken can be good as well. But my preference would be pasture raised eggs.
Oh, yeah.
This is a really, really good source of omega-3s and doesn't contain a lot of omega-6.
Huh. Do you know what
I
the
think
ratio on that one is?
I think one pasture raised egg has about 330 milligrams of omega-3s,
Hmm.
um, which is similar to pasture raised chicken, but the omega-6 to 3 ratio is more like 1 to 1.
Okay. So more
So
in line
much
with beef.
exactly.
Interesting.
And
That's a
and a
big
lot
difference.
Yeah, and a lot of vitamins and minerals too in pasture raised eggs. So the other thing you have to consider when you're comparing chicken and pork, for that matter, versus beef is the digestion of these animals. So chicken, they're monogastric animals, meaning they have one stomach, just
Mhm.
just like humans, one stomach, and the diet of chickens and pigs, for that matter, mostly consists of grains, corn, and soy, like we talked about. And these are very high in polyunsaturated fats and specifically omega-6 fats. And since they have this monogastric stomach, this one stomach, they're unable to convert the polyunsaturated fats to other types of fats, which is one of the main reasons why these animals are higher in omega-6 fats. Whereas cows, ideally grass-fed cows, they have a specialized stomach with 4 different compartments that actually allows them to consume even grains, corn, and soy. Even if they are consuming that, even if you don't get grass-fed, um, their diet is high in polyunsaturated fats. But with this 4 compartment stomach, they are able to convert the polyunsaturated fats into saturated fats, which is, in my opinion, the preferred source of fat, saturated fat.
Yeah, so the way the cows' stomachs are designed allows them to digest food in a way that makes it easier for us to consume when we eat that type of protein, chicken versus beef.
Exactly right. Yep.
That's kind of crazy.
Yep. And that's the same thing for any ruminant animal. Like I said,
Yeah.
beef, bison, venison, elk, lamb, those sorts of animals.
Yeah. I remember going to the state fair here in North Carolina last year, and they had a big diagram of a cow, and it showed the 4 stomachs.
Mm.
And it's amazing how big the stomachs are within that cow. Like it's a huge part of their body there is that stomach. It's almost like they were designed to have this intentionally to be able to kind of break down these different types of polyunsaturated fats.
Yeah, absolutely. They can take things that aren't necessarily nutritious for us if we just consumed it by itself. But they can take this, convert it into something that is really beneficial for us to consume.
Yeah. So another benefit for consuming beef there.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, definitely.
Yep.
Another point.
Good point. When you think about your own diet and those 3 proteins, if you had to assign percentages to them between beef, chicken, and eggs, what would you put those percentages at?
Hmm. Recently,
Over the
probably
past 6 months, let's say
yeah, probably 95% beef.
95.
Yeah, I mean, I eat it every single day.
Yeah.
Chicken, I'll eat every once in a while. Like if I go home and our mom will cook up some chicken.
Hmm.
Hopefully it's pasture raised. uh, every once in a while, maybe once every couple weeks. And then fish, I honestly can't remember the last time I had fish.
No. So it's almost like the opposite of the Mediterranean diet, where you're flipping beef and fish. You're having beef multiple times a week and fish maybe once a month, maybe every
Yeah.
other month.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, basically flip that food pyramid on its head kind of. And
Yeah.
I mean, it says meat and sweets in the
Yeah.
top category. I'm not consuming a whole lot of sweets unless it's fruit.
Hmm.
But yeah, red meat is definitely the primary protein in my diet.
Yeah, that's definitely where you focus. And the other thing too, we've mentioned a lot of the nutrient profile of each of these different proteins. And I went through each of them and looked at exactly where there was overlap and where there was anything that stood out between them. Because in my head, I'm getting lost between all the different types of vitamins and minerals in there. So for simplicity's sake, there was a lot of overlap in terms of what is in each of the different protein options with the specific vitamins. But there were 2 areas that really stood out that only beef had these specific vitamins and minerals, and that was collagen and creatine. Why
Mm-hmm.
are those 2 things something that people should be consuming? What is the importance there?
Well, so creatine is a very, very important amino acid. I know a lot of people, a lot of bodybuilders and gym rats, if you will take protein after or take creatine after they go to the gym because it's great for muscle growth and strength. Um, so that's very very important for that if you are trying to gain muscle, but also it's very important for brain health. A lot of studies show that creatine can improve your cognitive function, especially in older adults as you age. That can be really beneficial. So creatine in beef, not necessarily in chicken or fish. But
Yep.
before we keep going here, I want to rewind too and talk about yes, beef is more nutrient dense than chicken or fish, but also if you're getting grass fed beef from a regenerative farm, there's no bad stuff that goes along with it. Even though we've been told cholesterol, saturated fat is bad, cholesterol, it raises our cholesterol, and that's going to cause heart disease. Um, there's no toxins or pollutants or heavy metals or anything that goes along with it.
There's no downside compared to the chicken being high omega-6 and fish being those heavy metals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't get that with grass fed beef, which is
Oh,
why I love it and why I consume it every day.
yeah. It's only upside, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of those nutrients that you are consuming, one thing we've talked about a lot is the bioavailability of it. Is it easier for us to consume red meat, beef compared to chicken and fish?
Easier for us to absorb the nutrients.
Yeah, they absorb the nutrients.
No, I'd say it's similar all around.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, just because animal protein is going to be the best, most bioavailable source of nutrients in our diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, high quality animal protein is definitely it should be the center of our diet. It's where we get a lot of the vitamins and minerals. A lot of people will tell you, no, it's the fruit, no, it's the vegetables that we get where we get a lot of vitamins and minerals. But for the most part, a lot of vitamins and minerals in fruits and vegetables, yes, they're good, but they have to be converted into something else within our body. And sometimes that conversion isn't necessarily a high percentage, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And with high quality animal protein, even pasture raised chicken, even wild caught fish, and grass fed beef and pasture raised eggs, our bodies know what to do with it much better. A lot of times it doesn't need to get converted into anything. Our body just kind of knows what to do with it because that's how we as humans evolutionarily grew up basically.
Yeah.
We hunted animals.
Hmm.
And that's where we got our nutrients from the meat and from the organs of these animals.
Yeah, I think it was maybe the milk episode we talked about this, where just because on the back of the nutrition label it says there are 10 grams of protein in
Mm,
whatever you're consuming, it doesn't mean that you're getting all 10 grams from that specific serving. Your body might not be able to process all 10. Some of it just might move through you, and maybe you only get three or four. But what you're saying here is that for these animal proteins, you're getting a larger percent than any other type of protein that you can be consuming.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Got it.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So then the other one other nutrient that what stood out there with beef was collagen. One that we've definitely talked about before. I think in the bone broth episode that
Yeah.
we talked about some collagen. What is the benefit again to that?
Yeah, so bone broth is a great source of collagen, but also beef can be a great source of collagen as well. And a lot of people, take collagen supplements, which can be good, but a lot of time it's very low quality and it goes through a lot of processing. So that's why I prefer to get collagen from bone broth or from meat. And you can make your home, you can go buy some grass-fed bones from the store, beef bones, chicken bones, whatever, and make your own bone broth, which is super easy, super cheap, and super nutrient dense.
Yeah.
Uh, but collagen specifically is great for skin health, good for your joint health, and many other benefits. Can be good for your digestion and good for your muscles as well.
Yeah. I was amazed at how many benefits there were when we did that bone broth episode to collagen. I think we talked about maybe collagen for 5 or 10 minutes. And it's just like a nonstop list of all these things that are good for you.
Yeah, and just bone broth in general is just amazing for you. It's it's
Yeah.
it's it's probably one of the most nutrient dense thing. It's probably the most nutrient dense thing you can drink.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is actually. I was reading Justin Mayers, our friend,
yeah.
who the is the founder of Kettle
Um,
and Fire, the bone broth company. He sends out a newsletter every month, and he just mentioned he's doing a 3 day fast this month, and he is doing the first day. He's just consuming bone broth. The second 2 days, he's only consuming water, no bone broth.
oh,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, but I remember that it reminded me of the one that you did.
Yeah, the bone broth fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying that they've tried it since we talked about that.
Really? What did
So
they
pretty
think?
cool. I don't. I don't know if I got any results. I got some messages while people were doing it. They were just asking um, what else I was consuming
Mm,
while on that diet, but it was
yep.
basically just bone broth.
Yeah, I think it's gaining steam, these bone broth fats. I see them
Mhm.
popping up more and more. And I think they'll be more common.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, kind of going off topic, but I think when it comes to these different types of fasts, whether it's a water fast, a bone broth fast, or like a juice cleanse fast, kind of, I think the bone broth fast is the best thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You're still consuming a lot of calories. You're still consuming a lot of good protein and fat. You're getting all of these nutrients, and it's just the ultimate fast diet, I guess, if you will. If
Yeah.
I had to choose one.
Yeah. The point that Justin made too that I thought was interesting in his newsletter was that if you think back to our ancestors, it is highly unlikely that they were having 3 meals a day, even 2 meals a day, just because it depends on when they could find animals to eat. So
Yeah.
there were days where they would go without eating, and their bodies just adapted to that. So when we go through these fasts, it feels almost like torture not having the 3 meals that we may be used to, but our ancestors did it and their bodies evolved, and that's effectively where we came from. So as awkward as it feels, maybe in the moment, it's something that our bodies know how to handle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great point. We'd go days without eating, and then finally we'd kill an animal, and then you know we'd eat as much as we wanted.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. We're told to restrict our meals, or only have fist serving size of protein in your meal or whatever. But again, evolutionarily speaking, we wouldn't kill an animal and then eat a fist worth of
Yeah.
meat. We'd eat as much meat as we possibly could until we were like, okay, I'm done.
Yes.
Um,
Not waste anything.
yeah, and that again kind of goes along with the whole saturated fat cholesterol thing. Like we were never worried about this.
No. No, exactly.
Uh,
This is a newer thing. Even in like the last 70 years since the kind of the Ansel Keys study in the 50s, this is a very new phenomenon.
Yeah. Have you there's this new Netflix documentary.
Uh,
It's a twin study comparing a one of the twins is on a vegan diet and the other one is on an omnivore diet. Have you
mhm.
have you heard have you seen this?
No, I haven't seen it.
So we don't have to go into detail here, but basically I know this documentary was partly funded by investors from Beyond Meat,
Mm.
and they're really just trying to push this vegan narrative and basically just hate on saturated fat, meat, and cholesterol as much as they can.
Mhm.
And I watched one episode. I think it's a 4 or 5 episode series, and I watched one episode. And I'll tell you what, Kevin, it was very painful for me to watch, and I don't think I can watch another episode uh, because of how much they were hating on meat and how much they were promoting a vegan diet.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Beef needs like a better marketing campaign. Like for whatever reason, if people just love to bash on red meat. It's amazing to me when their main source of like the negativity that comes around red meat is wrong. And
Yeah.
that's just like amazing to me.
Yep. Yep.
Shocks me.
Yeah. It's pretty sad, but
Yeah. All right,
so
I
if
got
you if
this.
you if you want to watch that if you want to watch that documentary, go for it. But I wouldn't suggest applying any of the things that you quote unquote learn from that documentary into your life and into your diet,
Yeah.
because I personally do not agree with a lot of it. And there's a lot of people on social media also kind of pointing out a lot of the red flags and pointing out all of the information that isn't so accurate.
When in doubt, always ask who's funding the certain study. That
Yes.
seems to be the theme.
Yes.
Yep. The other takeaway too that I had in the chart, there was one nutrient, one vitamin mineral that was only found in fish, and that was iodine. I'm not familiar with it. What is the benefit of iodine?
Yeah, so iodine is very important for our thyroid health.
Mm,
And this was part of the reason that they started adding in iodine into salt. I'm not exactly sure when that happened, but years ago, a lot of people were getting goiter, which is basically thyroid disease. So they started adding iodine into salt. But the problem is with that kind of salt, it goes through a lot of processing and it actually takes out a lot of the vitamins and minerals in it originally, and then specifically trace minerals, and then they add in synthetic iodine. So yes, that it's not the worst thing, iodized salt. There's much worse things to consume.
Hmm.
But I like to consume unrefined sea salt, which doesn't have iodine added to it. And that's why fish actually is a really good source of iodine, which is not found in chicken or ground beef. So if you think you may be deficient in iodine, um, fish is probably one of the best sources for you.
That's a good way to get it. Is there a specific
Yeah.
type of fish that's higher in iodine?
I don't think so. I'd probably just go for something like, again, sardines or anchovies or wild caught salmon. That's what I'd stick to.
Yeah,
Those
play
are
it
all,
safe with those.
yeah, those are all good sources of iodine.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
There was one other thing too that we were talking about before that I don't think was considered at all in why the Mediterranean diet came out as the best diet for 2024. And that's actually the lifestyle of a lot of these people that they measured. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more too?
Yeah. Diet is so incredibly important. And I think it's a great foundation, but there's a lot of other lifestyle factors and ways to manage stress and exercise, how much you're moving your body, all of these points that maybe weren't taken into consideration when they were doing this, when Ansel Keys was doing his study, but then also even today when we're still evaluating these different areas of the world. Um, they basically just take diet into consideration and then they make conclusions based off of diet alone, and they're not necessarily taking in these other factors.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the Blue Zone.
Yeah,
People are familiar with
exactly.
that, where they
Same. Yep.
concluded that people that eat like plant-based diets are healthier than people that eat meat. But
Yep.
those people that live in the Blue Zones they're outside more. They live in these communities that are very well connected. You get a lot of human interaction. There are all these benefits that they kind of avoid in talking about with Blue Zones, and they just focus on what they want to fit the narrative.
Yeah, that's another great point. Community,
Hmm.
where I think maybe lacking in some people's lives, especially in the U.S., where other countries prioritize that, and it's a really healthy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's a huge deal in Europe
Yeah.
to have those things.
Okay, that's going to be it for episode 28 of the Clean Kitchen podcast. Hope you learned something here. If you didn't hear it earlier, beef is the winner, in my opinion. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you guys learned something. We'll see you next week in episode 29.